This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm your host, Diane Dye Hansen, management consultant, and with me as always is Christine Salvo, therapist, certified mediator, and certified hypnotherapist.
Good morning, everybody. Hello.
Good morning, everybody. So today on the show, we have Lisa Baronoff. And Lisa is a proven marketing executive with more than 20 years of experience across a broad range of marketing disciplines. World-renowned companies such as Revlon, Mattel, and Sara Lee Hosiery have relied on her creativity, concept originality, and design expertise in product development, packaging, advertising, public relations, and promotional support. With a track record of identifying mass and niche market opportunities and launching successful consumer products in response, she's also known for excellent communication, interpersonal, and presentation skills. She grew up in South Africa as the daughter of a famous fashion designer and has a love for fashion and design in her blood. In 1996, she moved to New York City, where she lives with her husband, 2 children, and 2 adorable dogs. She loves her dogs like crazy and considers them all part of her family. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Hi, Diane. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, thank you for being on. I am always just in love when I speak with an entrepreneur who saw a problem in the world and develop something to heal that problem. And you did that with Walkee Paws. So could you tell me how Walkee Paws was developed? What were you doing and the problem that you saw?
Sure. So it all started in 2015 with my older dog, Toffee. He was having a problem with his stomach and had, terrible stomach issues. I took him to the vet, and the vet said to me what had happened is it was the winter in Manhattan. He had walked on the snow and the salt melting chemicals had gotten on his paws, and he had inadvertently ingested them by licking his paws. And the vet said to me, you really have to put booties on your dog. And I was like, I've never thought of putting booties on my dog. I was like, okay. And I went on a mission to buy booties. So I bought probably at least 10 different pairs. And each and every pair of booties had the same 3 problems for Toffee. They were like really hard to get on. To get 4 individual booties on a dog's paws is really difficult. And dogs don't like having their paws touched. They just really don't like that. And then if I eventually got them on Toffee, then he was very uncomfortable because they relied on being tight around his ankle to stay on. And then if we eventually got outside and we started walking in the snow, one of them or more than one would fall off. And that happened with each and every single pair, and it wasn't really working. And I was like, this is just not happening. And because of my background working for Sara Lee Hosiery, I had a brainwave one day where I came back from one of these walks, and I ran and took a pair of pantyhose and I put Toffee's legs into the pantyhose and tied the pantyhose over his back. And I was like, this could be a really cool idea, because this could be like a legging where you could attach a booty to a legging so it would actually stay on because it would suspend over a dog's back. And on top of that, it wouldn't rely on being tight around their ankles. And they'd all link together as one set, so it wouldn't be 4 individual booties. And that's where my marketing sort of brain sort of kicked in. And there's obviously been, as you probably know, a huge trend over the last 10 or 20 years towards athleisure, where we're all walking around in our leggings every day. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, well, why not dogs too? Why? No one's really thought of launching a legging for dogs. And then when I did some research into the pet industry, which is a whole new industry for me, I realized there's an incredibly huge trend towards humanization, where people are treating their pets like they would themselves and doing things for their pets that they would themselves, like giving them organic food now. And I was like, well, if women are walking around in their leggings, why can't they have dogs walk around in cool, comfortable leggings too that are also functional? So that's where the idea came from.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it just all happened. It wasn't really something I was planning to do, but I did have the marketing background. I'd worked for very big companies. I was at home looking after children. And I was like, there's nothing else out there. And I wanted to make this for myself to solve my problem. And then I was like, why not make this into a business? So one thing led to another.
Right. And I think there's certain ways that people behave when faced with frustration, like you did. You're outside in the snow, you're walking your dog, the booties are falling off. There's a number of ways you could have taken this, and your choice was to innovate. So when you're in that frustrated state and and just, you're dealing with your dog's sick, so you have to do something. The booties are falling off. The dog doesn't want to wear the booties. How did you process that? A lot of people would just break down and cry at some point.
I think my background is sort of problem solving, and I have this sort of saying, like I use it with my kids all the time, which is improvise, adapt, and overcome. So I've sort of used that in all parts of my life, and that's where this kind of applied, because this just wasn't working. And then I just had this brainwave, which was I am a very creative person, so it was a creative idea. And it sort of all just fell into place. And then I got really excited about the different patterns we could do on the leggings. And I was running around having them sewn and trying to figure out how to do a bootie that was waterproof and that would also be resistant for pavements and outdoors. And what was really cool is when I started testing the product just by walking my dog around the neighborhood, I had realms of people coming up to me and saying, "Where did you get those?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm making them." And they were like, "I want to buy them." So I started developing a list of people, which was really cool. And then I had a whole list. So when I launched the product, there was, already a demand for it. So it's just something that's very visually arresting, because I think seeing dogs in leggings, I mean, you get all sorts of sort of looks on the street, from, admiration to craziness to, little kids that turn around and say, "Oh my God, mommy, that dog has shoes on. That dog's wearing boots. The dog's wearing leggings." So, yeah. So,
Oh,
kids
I
say,
like that. You really went into that adapt, improvise, and overcome space with it, and began questioning the status quo, really. Because the status quo is booties are available, you could put plastic bags on their feet, you could do all these other, kind of band-aid things, or you could use it to innovate. And I think that's where we are as a society right now. Where we are as a society right now is either we slap the Band-Aid on it and make it work for now, or we innovate and make it work forever.
agreed.
And and truly that is the mindset, and that is really what my critical opportunity method is all about, is teaching people how to do that. However, there are people like yourself who just do that naturally. Like, it's a part of the wiring to, instead of breaking down and crying on the sidewalk, instead of blaming the booty company, instead of going into these other spaces that are more counterproductive behaviors, your adapt, improvise, and overcome mindset really puts you into a solutions-based mindset of, okay, this is what it is. Now, what can I do to make this better? And by being open to that, you are allowed to question, you are allowed to innovate. And you said there are people along your walks that maybe weren't as much of a fan.
Yes.
So also, kind of not listening to who your market isn't.
And even some friends of mine, to be honest, when I was looking to launch this, friends of mine who had dogs said to me, "Oh, my dog would never wear that. I would never put that on my dog." So it also sort of teaches you can't really listen to everyone, because, if you listen to everyone, you're going to get 20 different opinions, and you've got to really go with your gut feeling. And there are a ton of people who love the product and they really find a use for it. And there's some people that think it's crazy and ridiculous. So there's a little bit of everything. So
Yeah, and what I'm kind of getting from this is you're almost like meant to make this product, right? So you come from a fashion designer as a father, and I'm sure that helped with some of your development, right? So you're not necessarily out of your wheelhouse on any of this. So fashion, design, you knew the people, I'm guessing on some level, who to talk to.
yeah, 100% true. It's sort
The
of
marketing, right? The
together as sort of like a perfect storm, because I have the fact in my blood. I'm a marketing person, so I've worked in new product development for big companies. I've developed different products, and what also is so amazing for me is it's an industry that I love so much because I love dogs. I have 2 of them. If I could, I'd have 20 dogs. I think dogs are the most amazing creatures, and I absolutely love them. So working in an industry that I love and being able to use my creativity and use also my skill set that I had from the corporate world, also being a mom, a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids, and being able to incorporate all of this and be able to start a new business all by myself was just a really cool experience. And I think also the times that we live in now with the internet and with social media, And just with being able to work from home and do everything yourself, it's just incredible what one can do. You know, when I worked for Mattel, I was, you know, in a big corporate office where I did one small function and then people did other things. And now I'm sort of doing all of it, but I'm able to do that because of where we are in the world. So that's really.
So I'm a little curious. So you take your dog for this walk, you recognize these issues, and you know, I always bring it home to the family. So I'm curious what this was like when you went home to your husband and your children and you're like, I'm gonna make dog leggings.
Um, well, my husband is a kind of a straight and narrow New York banker, very sort of not out of the box, put it that way. So I think he was rolled his eyes a little. He was like, it's a little ridiculous. So I don't think he really got it. My daughter is very fashion forward. She is 13 going on 30, and she really loved the idea. She thought it was very cool. So she was very excited about designs and patterns and helping and coming up with a logo for me. So that was great. My son was kind of like, you know, leave me alone to play with my Legos. He was little at that point. There wasn't a ton of enthusiasm from the family, but I think I sort of just, you know, drove it forward because it was something I really believed in and was very energized by. And I did love having my daughter helping me with, I mean, she literally came up with the Walkee Paws logo, which was amazing. She's very creative.
I love hearing that. I really love hearing that. So you made this a family affair. So whether they were on board or not, I think that's such a beautiful way of showing your young children too that you don't have to have everyone's approval. You don't have to have the thumbs up. Not everyone has to say, "Great idea, that's going to make $1 billion." It's if you want to do it, put your hat in the ring and do it.
Exactly. And she, you know, was also really cool is I'm not a millennial. I don't really have the innate experience with the internet and with social media, but she was all over reaching out to, you know, dogs on Instagram, you know, Insta famous dogs and telling them about Walkee Paws, which was amazing. I had at that point, she was like 10 years old and she was really, you know, helping out, which was really cool.
I love
so she's
that.
able to see some of her natural talents as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, she is. She's creative. You know, it kind of runs in the family. My mother was a very famous fashion designer who was just very creative and out of the box and didn't really care what people thought and did whatever she believed in. And I'm very much like that. And Natasha is too. So
I think that this is a really key component to creating opportunity in difficult times, though. You really have to know your support team. You have to know who your market is for something, but also you need to know, who is that equivalent of the daughter who's going to create the logo? Who is the equivalent of your cheerleader? Who is the one who's going to edit things and make sure that things, go out well for you? And what the mistake that people and companies make is that they begin to align themselves with the peanut gallery. They align themselves with the mass public opinion. They align themselves with people who are not necessarily in alignment with the mission, the vision, the goal of what you're trying to accomplish. The other way that people go about gathering the wrong kind of support is they rage against the machine. So when I was talking about the other choices that you could have made at the time, another choice you could have made was just to rage against the makers of these booties. And plenty of people do it. They go on Amazon, they leave snarky bad reviews, and they call it a day. Right. And you very well could have done that. Innovation isn't born out of that, which I call joining forces with hate. You just gather up all that hate, all that anger, and you blast it out on the internet. You try to find as many people to agree with you as possible. It's super satisfying for some. But for those who are wired differently, we are not satisfied by that. We want to innovate, we want to change, and we have the courage to question. And when you have the courage to question and then you align the correct support team, you really set yourself up for success. You really do set yourself up for it to reach the right market, to just become more than it would have been without the struggle that accompanied it.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of people are facing now. And one thing that you had mentioned to me, that your business has actually grown in this time period. So how are you innovating now that we are dealing with this pandemic situation?
Well, firstly, we are very lucky to be in the space we're in because we know we don't really sell retail. So we are, selling on our website and on Amazon. So it's all internet based and people are at home and buying from home. But what really has catapulted the growth is people are now more aware of germs than they ever were. And I'm realizing that for myself. I'm coming home, I'm washing my hands, I'm wiping off packages, I'm taking my shoes off when I come home. And I think people are now realizing, especially if they live in cities like Manhattan, that their dogs are walking all over the city, going out. They have to go out to walk, and then they're coming in and they're bringing dirt and germs into the house. So that was always part of Walkee Paws' offering. It's actually on our packaging that I can read it. It says we keep paws clean, dry, and germ free. So it's always been part of what we do. And I, realized that just in general, walking the streets of New York, they're really, really dirty, even before this whole COVID-19. But now even more so. And recently, the CDC has come out saying that there's been studies in Wuhan that have shown that workers, IC nurses, have been bringing the COVID-19 into, on their shoes into their homes. They've actually done research, and 50% of the shoes of ICU nurses have had the COVID-19 on them. So I think people are now realizing that they just don't want their dogs to be naked walking the streets and just coming in and jumping in their bed, because all of us, who love our dogs, have our dogs sleep in bed with us. And they want some sort of protection. So you could bring your dog home and put their paws in an antibacterial wash and wipe them and wash them and then have wet paws. But the alternative is you could wear the doggy leggings, which are really a very simple, easy way to put dog shoes on your dog. Walk your dog all over the dirty streets, come back and take them off and just wash them under soap and water and leave the dirt outside. And I think that's just sort of taken off naturally now, and people are talking about that on social media.
Right.
And we had a nurse actually write into us saying, thank you for this product because it's really helping with COVID-19. Was on social media, and someone went laugh out loud, how is it helping? And she went on to say, she works as an ICU nurse and she sees what's going on and she just wants to keep germs out of her home. So this is another way that you can just create a barrier between your dog's paws and the streets and easily leave the germs outside.
And to update our listeners on what that specific news is, a small study at a hospital in Wuhan, China has found that COVID-19 could be spread by shoes. The study, published in the Emerging Infectious Diseases Journal, tested service samples from an intensive care unit and general COVID-19 ward at the Huashan Hospital in Wuhan, China. The ICU housed 15 patients with severe symptoms, and the general ward housed 24 patients with milder symptoms. From February 19th through March 2nd, swab samples were collected from the floors, computer mice, trash cans, sickbed handrails, patient masks, personal protective equipment, and air outlets. The positivity rate was relatively high for floor swab samples, perhaps because of the gravity and airflow, causing most virus droplets to float to the ground. In addition, as medical staff walk around the ward, the virus can be tracked all over the floor, as indicated by the 100% rate of positivity from the floor in the pharmacy, where there were no patients, the study said. Half the samples taken from the soles of the shoes of the ICU medical workers tested positive, leading health officials to conclude that the shoes might function as carriers. So this is big. This is take the shoes off at the door moment, but also something that you have created before all of this happened is becoming almost really a necessity to cover your dog's feet.
An essential item, right? If you're a dog owner.
Well, it's interesting, Dan, because when I launched this, as I mentioned, it was really for the salt after the snow. But once I had started walking my dog Toffee in these, I sort of wanted to put them on him all the time because I just looked at the streets and what he was walking on, and sort of, especially if you live in a city and you look at the pavements, that's really a dog's bathroom. That's where dogs are doing their business, and it's dried out germs. And I was like, my dog sleeps in my bed with me. He's a cute, adorable little golden puppy, and he snuggles with me. And I just didn't want I didn't want him stepping on all of this and jumping into my bed. So that was even before this. And now, as I mentioned, it's even more of a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So your journey here, for our listeners, what I'm kind of tracking here is you had left the corporate world to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of by chance, not by choice. You were put in this situation. All of a sudden, you need a solution for your dog. You create something, And it's working. It's working beyond what my guess is you ever thought it might.
Yes, yes, 100%. It
So,
took off, which was
right.
started selling, and I was, wow, that's,
So, our show's really about the human element of all of this. So for the other stay-at-home people that are raising children that have brilliant ideas and don't know what to do with it, and kind of compounding all of this, your life experience means something, whether you're working in the corporate world and using those specific gifts and talents or not.
Mhm.
And how you kind of brought it all together, and maybe what you could offer to people that are going, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I have a great idea, or I'm a stay-at-home dad, or whatever the situation is, and I feel like I have something, but I don't really know what to do with it. Like, maybe you could share something of some insight or some wisdom.
Yeah, I would encourage people to just, go with their gut feeling. And if they do have an idea, to pursue it. I think for stay at home moms, I know for myself, my kids are now a little older, but I sort of feel like it's really important for my kids to see me doing something. I didn't really feel comfortable with them seeing me sort of go to the gym and go out for lunch and, sort of go shopping. I wanted them to see that I was making a difference, or using my brain or doing something. So I think that was a real impetus for me too. But I'd also say you've got to turn off the naysayers in your brain, So all those moments where people say to me, no one will ever buy that. No, I'm not going to put my dog in that. And then I did wake up a few mornings and like a cold sweat thinking, what am I doing? This is never going to sell. No one's ever going to buy this. But you sort of need to get beyond that. You've got to get beyond the negative speak that happens naturally and focus on the positive. And I'd say it's just very refreshing to be able to actually do something with your life that you can create. And I think everyone can create whatever they want to create for themselves. And I managed to do this doing something I love doing and for dogs. And I love working with animals, and I love the industry. So I'd say to people, if they have a natural talent for something, they have an idea, especially if they love the industry and they feel it's something they'd want to do, that to pursue their dreams and move forward.
Absolutely. And I think we have a unique opportunity right now to do exactly that. The world has gotten quieter. There's not a million and one things to rush to. And we are being asked to stay home. We are being asked to shelter in place. And because of these things, there are a number of opportunities that exist for creativity, for innovation, for exploring that off the wall idea. And then knowing that retail is the big boom, but it's also the big barrier in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the falsehood of, if Walmart doesn't pick up your product, you're nothing, is it holds a lot of innovation back, and it holds a lot of people back from filing patents for cool things, and doing the big thing because they don't think that it's going to be big enough. And I think when you shared about running into people in New York and they were like, "Oh my goodness, I want to buy this from you. This is so cool. You're totally solving a problem here." I mean, that's the core of business right there.
Yeah.
And we forget, and all that stuff is that it's not about getting in the big box retail store. It's about getting in the hands of someone whose life is going to be better because they have it. And I think the biggest barrier to that success often becomes us and our mindsets and our
Mhm.
ability to say, I'm going to do it anyway, and just let go of that outcome, because you couldn't have put this in a marketing plan right now, what's happening.
Exactly. And actually, interestingly enough, not being in the big box retailers now is actually helping me, because that would have been a big problem. And I'd say to people that in today's, age, with the internet and internet shopping booming so much, you really can do it all by yourself. You don't need to be in these big retailers. You also make a much bigger margin because you're selling direct to consumer instead of taking a cut, selling wholesale and then, giving away margins. So I'd say that as well. And also what's kind of interesting that's emerged out of all of this is I've been looking to source my booties in different countries, one of them being in India. And the person who's been dealing with me on sourcing it came back to me recently and said, the factories aren't working right now because everyone's got the stay-at-home order in India. the only thing they're working on right now are medical necessities, and they're making masks. And he said, would you like masks? And I thought for a minute, and I was like, masks? What am I going to do with masks? And then I suddenly thought to myself, why not do a mask where you could have the mask to match the doggy leggings? So when you go out on your walk, you could protect yourself. And then you're also protecting yourself by having your dog wear the leggings that you take off when you come home. So we are exploring doing some masks, which could be a really fun pivot for the brand.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. And I have to have this follow-up question now. So your husband, kind of straight-laced, straight-line banker, wasn't real sure about this. It happened. It's happening. What's his feedback now?
It's very funny. He now talks about the company as we. Often he says, we did this and we did that. And I have to look at him and say, well, I don't know about me. I did this. But no, he's been fantastic. He's very proud of me for doing this. And he's really been like my investor because he's helped me with, financing the business. And also I'm more of a creative brain and I can sort of go off the rails thinking of ideas. And he's the one who realms me in and says, well, we've got to really, is that going to be profitable? And talking about, the sort of backdoor money side of it, which is really, good to have that grounding with him. But I will tell you, when I brought up the idea of masks, he rolled his eyes as well. And then he happened to be on a phone with a very successful businessman that he was talking to. And he was like, what do you think? And the guy was like, I think that's brilliant. So it's interesting. He's kind of like a glass is half empty kind of guy, whereas I'm the opposite. So it's kind of a good combination because it's a yin and a yang.
I sense the balance there.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, just like crisis can create opportunity, yin and yang, opposites attract, it makes things happen. I think everyone has their own strengths, and when you can find the strengths in each other and he can give you the input on the profitability and the business and, kind of be the litmus test to everything, like how bad do you want it, Lisa? Because he's going to challenge you, and then you provide the creativity side because he would have just naysayed the mask completely. And you're like, no, ask somebody. And he asked his friend and away we go. So I think it's that balance there, and it's finding the real opportunity and no matter what you're dealing with, really. So what a great conversation. Thank you so much for being on our show, Lisa.
Will you let our listeners know where they can find you, your website, your social media tags and things like that in case they're interested?
Absolutely. Well, if anyone is interested, it's Walkee Paws. And it's spelled WALK, like walk, and then EE, and then paws. And they can find me at walkeepaws.com. And if they just put Walkee Paws into Google or into Instagram, Facebook, it will all pop up.
Wonderful. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure talking with you, and good luck with the masks. Thanks so much.
We'll see who's right, my husband or me.
This has been Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Dye Hansen, management consultant.
Christine Salvo, marriage and family therapist, certified hypnotherapist, and certified mediator.
Have a great morning.
Have a wonderful day today.